Climate change is now perceived as the biggest threat to global security. Speaking at a UK forum dedicated to the issue, experts addressed how temperature rise and extremes of weather will continue to cause economic and social problems for all sectors of society. The four pillars of food, energy, water and climate, which make up climate security, have all been affected in recent years.
Of course, climate change as such is not a security threat, but it increases the risk that other drivers of conflict and instability will develop, such as desertification, migration, natural disasters, changes to coastlines, among others. Developed societies, of course, should have the necessary mechanisms to contain these tensions, and they are certainly equipped to respond. But states that are already weak, that are already fragile, could be tipped over the edge, and the consequences would then be exported outside the borders. And it's exactly also this argument we were using to raise awareness.
Without counteraction, climate change will overstretch many societies' ability to adapt. Certain areas of the globe are more vulnerable from the direct effects of climate change, but all will ultimately be affected as people migrate across borders.
The results of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report from last year, they clearly identified Africa as being particularly vulnerable because of its low adaptive capacity. The Arctic and the high latitude countries are at risk from climate change because of the greatest experienced impact in those regions. Now, clearly, that has geopolitical consequences, particularly if the Arctic opens up because of sea ice. Third area is the large delta areas around the world, from the Nile to the Ganges to the Irrawaddy to the other megadeltas in Asia, the Mekong Delta and those sorts of areas, where hundreds of millions of people live and are threatened by the impacts of climate change.
Security policies need to adapt so they can provide an adequate response to new threats facing international stability.
We think that the military and security establishment have insights and a way of thinking that can bring real value on, for example, mobilizing large technological research projects or planning against potential low risk but high impact events in the future. So we need military planners to think actively about this issue because it will dictate tomorrow's deployment of forces around the world.
The global arena is the most important. Unless there is significant action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, the impacts that we're likely to face are going to be exponentially worse than we are if we actually act now. So the Copenhagen meeting of the Framework Convention on Climate Change in 2009, the agreement on what happens after the Kyoto Protocol is absolutely critical if we're to avoid the worst impacts of climate change and therefore the worst security implications of climate change on unstable regions around the world and the security of each of us individually in terms of our own personal lives.
Building a low-carbon economy and establishing new preventative security coalitions are vital to tackle the impact of climate change.